care about life. And I want life to evolve and to develop and to become more of what it can be. Right? I care. So caring, it's caring versus not caring. So inertia, in its most toxic form, is the feeling, I don't care. You follow? So I'm trying to make this very simple and meaningful. It's the difference between caring and not caring. And I think, spiritually, the difference between caring and not caring is everything. From a spiritual point of view, the difference between caring and not caring is absolutely everything. It's not a small thing, it's everything, isn't it? So the toxic expression of inertia, the toxic manifestation of inertia is not caring. I don't care. Versus, I care very much. Can you feel the difference between the two? Can you feel the difference between I don't care versus I care very much? Now, in an enlightenment context, this gets interesting because the ego experiences what in an evolutionary enlightenment we call it negative freedom, unwholesome freedom, toxic freedom, in not caring about something higher. So inertia, giving into, submitting to the pull, the irresistible pull of inertia, gives the ego power. And the ego is not just these false personal emotional, psychological identity, it's also the lesser identities. So if in evolutionary enlightenment, the highest is a cosmocentric self-identity, it's giving power to all the lesser self-structures that exist underneath this cosmocentric identity. So in this case, the secular bourgeois values and all the emotional weight of that part of yourself still holds power. Because as long as you care more about keeping that intact than threatening its dominion over your body, mind, and personality, you'll feel this inertia about going to the next level. You'll feel this enormous weight pulling you down. And what it'll feel like is I just don't care enough about that. I don't care. So it's the weight of the inertia. And if we're not careful, the weight of the inertia can be experienced as being overwhelming, emotionally overwhelming. It's too much. It's just too much. I can't deal with it. I need to see a therapist. Right, Madame? That's the feeling of inertia is not, so what we're talking about, it's actually very important. It's the difference between caring and not caring, and caring a little bit, or caring very much. I care very much. So in the way I interpret things, a person who cares very much about these higher and deeper values is what we all are aspiring to become, a person who cares very much. Follow? I care very much. But we're talking about caring about higher things, things that are more subtle, not so obvious as things that are lower. So it takes effort, and it takes effort for most people to begin to feel a sense of care, and even at a higher level, a sense of obligation to higher and deeper and more subtle motivations and aspirations that begin to appear in higher states of consciousness and higher levels of development. These higher, more subtle feelings of care and even obligation don't even begin to appear until these higher states begin to emerge and these higher perspectives begin to emerge. But they're very subtle in comparison to what we're used to. So for most people, these are very, very distant vibrations of higher potential, because we're so our everyday emotions and concerns are so busy with lesser, I'm not saying unimportant, but lesser, which means less profound issues. So learning to feel a deeper sense of care about that which is higher and that is more subtle requires a lot of work and attention and intention and focused attention and intention and consistency to learn to begin to feel these things that most of us don't feel very often. But I'm making a fundamental distinction here that spiritually, spiritual development in this context, you could tell that someone was really spiritually developed because they really cared about these higher matters. Not because they should, but because they have no choice, because they feel it. If they feel, I really care. And you can tell that they really care because when they speak about what they care about, they're very connected to it. And they're transmitting the sense of care. They're in touch with something that they feel, that's real. It's not an intellectual abstraction, it's a living truth, it's a living vibration. So they care. And so, in relationship to the clarity of intention, the cultivation of the intention of the clarity of intention is so important because it gives us how do we deal with the overwhelming inertia or the lack of care about higher and deeper matters. It's by cultivating this fundamental intention. It's like an icebreaker. You know what an icebreaker is in the North Pole? It breaks through the ice. So inertia is like overwhelming ice. And there's a sea of inertia, which means there's a sea of I don't care all around us, because we're all to differing degrees embedded in the values that come to us from the culture that we have grown up in. So for most of us, it's a mixture of traditional, modern, and postmodern values in differing degrees, depending on who we are, that have not yet awakened to or recognized these higher dimensions of truth and reality that we're speaking about in here.